Why did the Scarecrow get an award?
Move on over. Welcome back to the Wild Business Growth Podcast. This is your place to hear from a new entrepreneur every single Wednesday morning who's turning wild ideas into wild growth. I'm your host, Max Brandstetter, founder and podcast producer at Max Podcasting. And you can email me at max@maxpodcasting.com to save time with your high-quality podcast. This is episode 266. That's all the singing you're going to get from me. And today's guest is Nicole Zeno. Nicole is the founder and CEO of Clever Cow Media, which is not a farm, believe it or not, but they help small businesses and startups make more moolah. See, I'm not the only one with a fantastic sense of humor here. In this episode, we talk how you could revamp your business by diving into the data and revamping your processes. Processes, we'll debate about that. We talk getting your business to the point that you can take a little bit of time off and still be okay with it. And everything from the Smashing Pumpkins and Yellow Card to some of the most clever, get it, dad jokes you will ever hear. It is Zeno, and Zeno's where to find a clever cow. Enjoy the show. Alrighty, we are here with Nicole Zeno, the founder and CEO of Clever Cow Media, which is close to my heart because my family business I grew up with, my parents started the year I was born, is Hippo Direct. So we got cows, hippos. I'm sure we'll come across some other animals and animal businesses as well, but animal businesses, that could lead people in a totally different direction. But anyway, Nicole, thank you so much for joining. How you doing today?
I'm doing well. How are you? I mean, thank you for having me. This is wonderful, and I'm sure we'll come up with some animal-related businesses. We'll see.
Of course. And actually, right here, I have a copy of the book Animal Farm. And what we're going to... No, that was awful. But... No, I really, really excited to speak with you, and of course love the business name, but love anybody in the marketing and entrepreneurship space, and been studying those areas for a long time and and doing them for a while. And it's really cool to see when people have brought that to life and kind of did it on their own terms. So we're going to get to that. But before that, so you are trained, educated, I don't know the right term, at the School of Visual Arts. What got you interested in the visual artistry space?
For me, personally, picking a college seemed like the worst thing I ever had to do. And honestly, even after building businesses and all of that, like that year of having to like pick what I was going to do for the rest of my life, still is one of the more stressful points in my life because I liked and I was interested in a lot of different things. And one of the main things I was interested in is creative problem solving, which you can guess is why I ended up in business. But my parents owned a small business that did software development and website design and development. And I was really into the visual art portion of it. Spent a lot of time in the art room. Like everyone says, I wasn't very popular in high school. And
no, you take that back. Only the cool kids say that.
Right? But I spent a lot of time in the art rooms, and I had a portfolio, and I'm not as great at math and, taking tests and all of that. And so when I took my SATs, I dreaded not having to take them again. And I went to a portfolio night with my art portfolio and got accepted into like 5 different schools, including the School of Visual Arts, which is one of the only accredited art universities in the country, except for CalArt is the only other one. Great program. And I said, wonderful, let's go do it. So I started in computer arts, which I thought was going to be more around web design, and it ended up being animation and video, which was a happy surprise, but I also didn't want to go work for Pixar. So, that's what they were basically setting you up for. And a lot of my peers did go work for places like Pixar and ILM and DreamWorks and all of those places. And I ended up in LA working, directing and producing music videos because I loved music. So that's kind of where my story started.
Do you have a favorite piece of art that you did before college?
This is going to sound really nerdy, but I started the stained glass club in junior high, and
Oh, same. No, I'm just kidding. It sounds nice.
I was like, really? Seriously? No.
Do we just become best friends?
I think we did. No, and honestly, we were just decorating for Christmas, and my mom still has this wreath I made for her in junior high that she puts up every year. So between that one and I have a finger painting from like kindergarten that's actually pretty good that my parents put with, they have a Ramiro Brito and a Peter Max, and they put my finger painting right next to it. So there you go.
Aw, no, that is such a wonderful gift to have around the house. And stained glass club, I think that's the first time I've heard it, but I love it. That it's creativity points all around and around, I guess. I don't know, but like, what was the difference from just being like, oh, I like stained glass, to let's actually create a club and make this kind of a social thing as well?
I think my entire life I've looked at building community. It's this weird thing where like you're kind of an introvert and want to not be around people, but then also you crave this community of people who are like you. And I think that that's where things like podcasts and these YouTube shows, that they really thrive, is because we're all looking for someone who's going through what we're going through, or likes the things we like and wants that, community. And so for me, it was always finding like, who else is weird like me? Who else wants to do these things? My parents also really made sure that we always had after school activities to do. We had to sign up for something athletic and something creative like every year. And so when I didn't find what I wanted to do already out there, I would always go just create it. And I guess that's was a telling point of what was going to happen in the future, even though I didn't know it at the time.
Ooh, that's good foreshadowing. And I think that goes back to entrepreneurial parents or parents with a small business, is that I feel like more often than not, they do encourage you to, kind of carve your own path and create something if it's not there already. So that's an awesome trait to share within the family, but also to like encourage your kid to do as they progress throughout life. We can't move on without hitting on music videos. So what exactly did you do in the music video world?
Funny that you said about the entrepreneurial family. In my household, it was like normal household. You say you want to start a business and parents are like, oh my gosh, you need security. In my household, my brother decided he didn't want to be an entrepreneur anymore and he wanted to go work for a big corporation. And it was like, wait, you're not going to be an entrepreneur? Like, so I was really lucky.
What is wrong with you?
Yeah. Yeah. He was like, he has, by everyone else's like standards, he has the most amazing job. He's very successful for his age. And my parents were like, wait, you're not going to be an entrepreneur and create your own stuff. Like, you don't have a boss. That's weird.
It's quite the family when the black sheep is like, oh man, you go to like a great company with a great salary and have less to worry about. And man, it's just such a shame.
Yeah, you have shares of the company? What? That's weird. A retirement plan? But anyway, so your question about music videos. So I always loved music. I am instrumentally challenged. I cannot play an instrument. I never was in a band. But I grew up in like a small suburban neighborhood in Long Island, New York, and we had this little venue where all the best like emo pop rock bands would come through, and my best friend's older brother would like sneak us in, and just loved music. My dad loved music growing up, and so when I realized I was a really good storyteller and I wanted to tell stories, I started looking into music videos and really was born in the wrong time for it, but went out to LA anyway, found the best director in the rock world, interned for him, and started directing and producing my own videos, and then realized that there was kind of this gap in where music was going. So historically, people would tour and they would sell a lot of records, and you would like wait outside and meet the band and become part of that community. And that's what really drew me to music, was the community. As things were changing, where record sales were down, record labels started taking money from the band's merch sales, and they started doing like VIP meet and greets, so you weren't able to like stay after and meet the band and all this stuff. And so me and my brother, I decided we needed to build this app where bands can connect with their fans, so in real time they can go on stage and say like, what song do you want us to play next? Or what color t-shirt should I wear? And in real time, they can vote on it and see that information and really start interacting. And that was my first like dabble into, wow, being a director and being a business owner or a founder, like have a lot of the same skills and passions and things to do. And that's just kind of where the leap came from.
The leap into musicpreneurship. You mentioned some very nostalgic genres there. Did you have any like favorite bands to work with, or even like dream bands that going back in time you're like, oh, I would have loved to partner with them?
Well, I actually got to work with a few of my dream bands. So the first band I worked with when I moved out to LA was the Smashing Pumpkins.
Yeah. Wow.
I didn't direct that video by any means. I was like, a small person on set. But it was one of those moments where you're like right out of college and you're in, LA, at a house where the Smashing Pumpkins are. And it felt really surreal. But I got to work with Yellow Card and Seosin and like all these great bands that I grew up listening to. So it was a lot of fun.
Despite all my rage, I'm just kidding. I was just starting to Smashing Pumpkins lyrics, but
are we gonna just start getting emo here?
Yeah,
'cause I'm okay with that.
I think so. Well, I mean, the world is a vampire, but no, they're awesome. No, I wish I saw them live. I did actually see back when I grew up in Cleveland, and back when they had like the knockoff X Games, the Gravity Games in Cleveland.
Yeah.
They had really, really good bands there. So I saw like Jane's Addiction there, Sum 41, Filter, and then Yellow Card, actually, around the time I was into Yellow Card. So small world. It's all connected, but that's a really, really fun way to start your career. Speaking of career, we should probably talk about Clever Cow. So let's get to Clever Cow Media. And I know there's many steps along the way before that, but in addition to the music world, what would you say was like the most foundational for you that helped you, achieve success once you did start your own thing with Clever Cow Media?
I think the foundational piece was just really figuring out, and success is funny. So it's a funny way to ask the question because my gut...
Sorry, that's just
me. No, it's okay. It's my gut reaction is to talk about like all the failures, right? Like I feel like up until recently, like
that's totally welcome too. Yeah.
Success is not really, part of it, right? And by all means, you can look at my revenue, you can look at all the things we've done, and we've had a lot of success, right? But really where the success comes in for me is finding the mission and the value and making sure that we're really hitting on that. So for me, I always came back to SMBs, startups, right? The people who I saw really early on how one small business can change my family. It changed the employees who worked for my parents, their families. It changed our community, right? And so I always tried to come back to small businesses. Even when I was working in music, bands are essentially small businesses, right? They're their own small businesses. And so I always kept coming back to that. And after I had started a few companies and exited them, I started Clever Cow with the intent to help small businesses. I saw where there was like a gap in how they marketed, how they think about strategy, how they think about budget, things like that, and really wanted to kind of build products that can help them. And didn't see anyone else really doing that out there. What I learned really quickly is the reason they weren't doing that out there is because small businesses generally don't have budgets. They don't have large strategies. They don't have executive teams who are helping them figure out what is marketing and what they need to be doing, right? Generally, it's the owner or, the CEO kind of doing everything themselves. There's lots of bottlenecks, things like that make it really hard to help small businesses. I want to help you guys. Just let me help you. And so it took a lot of time, and I fell into the same trap as everyone else as I built a marketing agency, and we had people that we had to pay, and we had to bring in bigger projects. And long and behold, I was working with companies that were not the companies I was looking for, and I was feeling like a failure, even though I was a success. And so recently, we actually went through a transition where I said, that's it. I'm going to figure this out. I'm going to figure out how do we help small businesses and startups? What do they really need? And we started building products for them. And it really, even though we're in that transition space, it's really felt like more of a success than ever before. And, really working with people who are making a difference in their communities is really where I love to be.
It's a beautiful thing when you basically get through all the shit and then find clarity and figure out what actually, like, oh, this is what I need to focus on right now, or like this is how we move the business forward. And I think it can take so long to get there when you're like kind of just going day to day with so many different projects or like so many things to worry about. How did you start to put the branding together for Clever Cow in the first place? Like we've talked about it, but it's a really fun name, fun logo, bonus points for alliteration. Smashing Pumpkins would say 0 points. I can't stop. But like how did you start to actually put a branding face on this brand?
Oh, everyone expects this really magical story. I get asked all the time if I'm from Wisconsin. Really?
There goes my next question.
There you go. Really what happened was it was during that time. I come from the tech sector, so we started building apps. We did a few other tech companies, and it was during the time where people were putting like blue lemur, like taking just 2 random words and putting them together and building a company.
You're talking about the yogurt company space as well. Pinkberry.
Yeah. Now it's just an ampersand in between, but before it was just 2 words, right? And my dog, she's a little 30-pound dog, and she is white with a few spots, and she always used to graze. And so it was 2 a.m. We were like, we need to come up with a name. We need to come up with some branding. Nothing was working. We were trying to like reinvent Google, and I randomly said, Clever Cow, we make you more moolah. And everyone just loved it, and it just stuck, and it ended up being a thing. So now it's everywhere, and now people buy me cow items, tchotchkes. Like I have a wind chime. They think I love cows, and I do, but everyone just buys me cow things now. It's pretty interesting.
That's so funny how it happened. Like when my parents' business, so like the business before was Heights International Publishing, so HIP, and then my dad was like, we should turn this into like an animal and like a fun thing, so hip became hippo. And I love stories like that of the background behind it, of like it doesn't often start with like, oh, this person just really loves that animal and then it's a thing. Like it's actually kind of back into it, and oh, it sticks. And now next thing you know it, you're going to be keynoting the Wisconsin State Fair. I feel it coming.
Oh, let's put it out into the universe. Let's do it. I feel like I always tell people with branding, it's like falling in love, right? You get that, like it could look amazing and it could have all the right colors, and then you move one thing and you get that like feeling. I always call it the feeling. I'm like, you get that feeling in your gut where you're like, oh, that's it, right? And it's the same thing. You can pick the best name. AI can pick all the greatest names, but until you get that feeling, it's not right.
So what's the best feeling for you in terms of your favorite type of projects to work on for clients? Like what really gets you excited in terms of helping other businesses?
Yeah, there's 2. There's the one type is the ones where they've been like banging their heads against a wall. Like, I have an issue. How do I fix it? Cannot figure it out. And come in and can kind of look through. One of my zones of genius is like really looking at data, looking at what has happened, and kind of figuring out how do we fix a problem that we're kind of stuck on. Those are really enjoyable because a small tweak can make a huge difference. And this is why, a lot of our products in Clever Cow really come at the place of like, you can build a house, right? You're not going to go to Home Depot, pick up some 2x4s and start building. You need blueprints, and you have a strategy, and you have a contractor, right? And what a lot of businesses do, what I find is that they actually go to Home Depot and they try to start building the house, right? And they have none of the strategy. And this happens a lot in small business. And so my second type of project I really like to work on are the ones where we get the chance to actually build things out, the processes out correctly. And everyone thinks because we're a marketing company, and I know that that's kind of our tagline, that we just do social media and make things look pretty, but really building out a process that's going to help people scale, that's going to be repeatable, that's going to be maybe automated, so that small businesses, startups, they have a really unique situation where they have to get the most done with the least amount of resources, the least amount of budget, and the least amount of time. And so being that I've come from the spot of being that founder, knowing what data points and KPIs I would want to see, and knowing that I have to do those things in the least amount of time with the least amount of budget and the least amount of resources, has put me in a unique position, and my team in a unique position, to really think through those pieces. And that strategy piece is really the one that I truly have been on a soapbox about to small businesses, that until you have those blueprints, our products, you basically come to us and you have the blueprints at the end. So now you can go and build a team internally or hire an agency or whatnot, and know that the moves you're making are actually going to get you to your goal. That's the thing that really gives me that feel, right? Like, that's the thing, is when someone has that confidence that they're making the right decision and not just trying something.
And the most amazing thing is that you do all that while listening to Yellow Card on repeat in the background. It's impressive. It's a lot of, a mix of whatever genre you consider them, and the violin, viola thing. But
I love it.
There's a couple different points there, and I think both totally agree. Huge foundational to businesses, whichever one of those words you prefer. So the first part is digging into the data and then seeing what tweaks you can make to see results in the business. So what's your approach for that? We've never lived in a better time to have data at our fingertips on anything we want, except for podcast data that needs to come a long way still. But what's your approach of going through the sea of data to see what pops out at you that you can make changes to a business?
The funny part about what you just said is that most small businesses don't have a sea of data. They could, but they don't.
Maybe it's a small pond of data.
Yeah, the first step is always setting up the data, right? Most of those, there's lots of tools out there, including free ones like Google Analytics, that you can set up your data. And it depends on what type of business you are, right? So obviously, if you're a retail brick and mortar shop, then maybe it's a POS system, maybe it's appointments and CRMs. But if you're an e-commerce shop, which most people have nowadays, even if you're a retail, it's, the Google Analytics, it's the customer journey and the funnel, and knowing that data. And the first step to anything is setting up the data. Most of these tools don't backfill data. They only forward fill data. And quite frankly, you can't make decisions in your business if you don't know data. I don't know how many times I've talked to someone and asked them, what's your cash flow or what's your P&L? And they don't even know what I'm talking about. So I personally cannot make decisions in my business without looking at what is going on in the business every day, right? And there's plenty of big names like Warren Buffett who says you cannot run your business without knowing these numbers. And so marketers in general tend to shy away from data because it makes them accountable for the outcomes. And they can't just say, you have great engagement, right?
Burn. Yeah.
I know. I'm sorry, marketers. I'm sorry. I don't consider myself a marketer. So that kind of goes there. But marketers tend to shy away from data because any business owner knows that followers don't equal revenue, right? Not necessarily, at least. And so we need to make sure that we have the data. So then the next step to that is, once we have the data, figuring out what is our goals. What are our goals in the next 2, 3, 5 years? And figuring out what KPIs success looks like. So just because you have a goal of having more orders or more revenue, okay, what does that mean? Does that mean $10,000 more? Does that mean $1 million more? If you know that you want a certain amount of orders, well, does that mean increasing your conversion rate? Does that mean bringing in more traffic? And so until you know that information, you really can't build test or A/B test or really know where to put your time and energy, because just because I give you 10% more traffic on your website doesn't mean you're going to convert if you don't have a conversion rate. And so you can spend a lot of money on ads, bringing in people that never convert. And all you needed was an email nurture or an abandoned cart, right? So these are the pieces. So once you have the data, really looking at how does that data relate to your customer journey, your funnel, and then tweaking things based on that. And I think our lives as business owners, we're always going to be tweaking. But I just filmed a whole video about this because we can go really far in depth, and I'm sure you don't want to talk too far into this, but data is going to be your best friend.
No, data is always valuable. And that was a really great rundown there from like setting up to, be able to receive data and look at data, both data and data. To analyze it and then figure out like how to apply it back to your business, which is really important. From your experience across, a variety of different businesses, what is it about certain data points that like something kind of flies off the page to you or flies off the screen to you of like, oh, wait a second, let's dig more in here?
I think it's really around where we're spending our money and time in terms of developing the product, right? So like, let's say I worked with an app company and they're spending a ton of time on this feature, but they have no data around if customers actually want that feature. Or looking at your product funnel or your SaaS stickiness or churn and not relating that data back to the market fit or feature set that you're working on. And so once again, everyone went into business to solve a problem for certain people, to make people's lives better. And if you're not going back to that constantly and going back to the people you're serving and the people that you're selling to, then you're going to spend a lot of time, money, and effort on things that they may not care about at the end of the day. And that's when the data will show that as well.
That's one of my favorite pastimes, is spending lots of time, money, and effort on things that people don't care about. It's great.
I mean, I think as entrepreneurs, a lot of us have done it.
The other leg that you talked about is about building things out and like figuring out, what changes need to happen to scale businesses and actually like, I guess making things more efficient. And it's almost more of like an ops angle, it sounds like. I know it changes greatly by the client, but what does that typically look like? Do you have a typical approach you take to that to make some changes there for the better?
So first off, I think that most SMBs and startups are working in a reactive mode. We need more sales yesterday. We need more customers yesterday. And especially coming from the marketing angle of things, because generally our customers come in because they need marketing services and then they leave with operations and sales and all the other stuff. Especially coming from marketing, owners and founders generally enlist marketing way too late, right? They enlist them when they need it and not 6 months earlier, and marketing and PR and things like that take time. And so generally we're getting like yelled at that things need to happen yesterday. And when I've worked in corporate and when I've done my own businesses and things like that, what I've seen is that working in a proactive state actually is how the world kind of works, right? These big companies that every business owner likes to cite, right? They're like, oh, well, PayPal does this. Well, PayPal actually has a marketing team and an executive who builds out a strategy and gives their team time to build the assets they need and to actually run the campaigns. With that being said, I think that getting everyone onto a spot where it's a proactive state, where they're building strategy, they're figuring out what their goals are, and they're making sure that the activities they're doing, whether those are sales, marketing, organizational, admin, are actually getting everyone to the same goal. So often we're spreading ourselves really thin with activities that are not really moving us forward, but we think we have to do. And instead, what we like to do is say, what does success look like in the next year? Okay, if success is more revenue, or if success is more users, then everything we're doing, here are the activities we should do to get us towards that. Oh, there's a new trend. That's not going to get us there. Let's not spend time and effort. And there's always time to pivot, right? There's always spaces to pivot. But we need to be able to say, we can't do everything. Here are the things we're going to do really well this year to hit this goal. Business owners need to feel confident that they're making that decision. They're spending the money as an investment and not as we're just throwing it against the wall and marketing doesn't work for us, which happens a lot for small business, right? And they need to make sure that that time is being spent in the right place. And then once we know something's working, right? Let's say you guys become really great at gaining users, not having churn, having people coming in and being sticky. Now, can we automate some of that and take the time that now has been used in automation or process and put that towards something else? So build first, make sure that it's actually working the way you want it, build a process, automate it, and then move on to the next one. And I think that so often comes from that software backgrounds. Software likes to do that. And so how can you put that into process for business and building and growing business? And that's generally what we're doing. And also like the idea that people, especially business owners, we're big thinkers. We want to save the world tomorrow. How can we do pillar 1 of save the world, right? That gets us a little closer. And then pillar 2 that saves the world, and then go and save the full world, right? So I am guilty of that. I have to kind of take a step back and say, okay, what is the goal? And that's why strategy and spending time on strategy is really going to move you forward versus, just be a waste of time.
You struck a chord or hit the nail on the head, whatever idiom you want to use. But the whole proactive versus reactive thing, that's something that like I've experienced firsthand with my podcast production business of like, this is my first time starting a business. And my wife and I, when we went on our honeymoon this past summer, it was, almost 3 weeks of like me being totally unplugged from the business, totally unplugged from the podcast, which was awesome. It was like a great change of pace. And like, obviously honeymoon, it's like, there's more important things. But like, in addition to all like the great stuff with the honeymoon, like I was also excited just to like, let my, I guess, subconscious mind work of like what happens if you take 3 weeks off your business and off your podcast, and like, what are you going to come out of that afterwards and like think about a new approach to things or like a new realization about things. And like the main thing that I kept realizing was that I need to be way more proactive and way more aggressive with my business. And by that, I mean, since starting it a few years ago, like vast majority of the business and like new clients have been from referrals and word of mouth, which is awesome and is always like going to be the biggest driver. It's always like still a big source of our business today. But like at a certain point, there's only so much you can grow when you're only relying on that. And so like, what else can you do to be more aggressive and proactive from a marketing standpoint and from a client standpoint? And so that's kind of like a big focus for this next chapter of Max Podcasting. So I'm totally with you there that you like diagnosed it perfectly, and I'm in the thick of it right now, so I appreciate you sharing it.
I love it. First off, congratulations. Second of all, I mean, we all go into business for, most of us it's freedom, or it's to help people, or it's to change things, and then we end up like not being able to take 3 weeks off for things that are more important. And I was in that stage, right? I built an agency where we had people, and if I left, nothing happened, or my clients only wanted to talk to me, and you can't drive every bus, right? Like you just can't do it. And I got sick of waking up every morning and having a boss, essentially, even though I left this for the freedom to be able to spend time with my family and to be able to enjoy the things that I enjoy. And I know there's so many people out there probably listening to your podcast who feel the same way, where they're frustrated. They feel like, okay, in another year, if I just work hard for another year, it's just going to get better. And eventually I'll be able to take 3 weeks off. And I even saw it with my dad, like growing up. There was a time where like cruises were a big thing. Everyone was going on a cruise, and we couldn't because there was no internet on the cruise, and my dad couldn't be away from business, right? And I just didn't want that, and I didn't want that for my people who are growing businesses and who are in small business and startup. And so if you start early, I saw this in corporate world. How did they take processes? If you build the right processes, you build the right strategies, you plan for the fact that at the end of December, maybe you let your team have 2 weeks off to spend time with their families for the holidays. If you plan for that, it's not going to hurt when it happens. That's just the thing. Like people, we need to get more into this idea of building process, building strategy. And too often small businesses say, well, I'm a 1-person team or I'm a 5-person team. We don't need that. And that's just not true.
Yeah. And it's super, I cannot talk at all. That is as way more of important as me pronouncing this correctly. A really important point about doing the things to allow yourself to take that time off, or like when you have a big life event or something like that, because that's like, I mean, this was my first time doing this to this extent, but like the reason I was able to take, obviously like I was taking off for the honeymoon, but like the reason that, the business didn't miss a beat over the summer when that happened was because like months in advance, I gave all my clients a warning about it. I was working on episodes like well in advance. I had a super detailed spreadsheet planning everything out months in advance. And then, of course, with podcasts, the nice thing is like you can schedule them to come out. You don't have to touch it. You could schedule them in advance. So like it all goes back to that planning. We don't need to get crazy into that now. For anyone listening that wants to know more about like how you can take 3 weeks off for a honeymoon, hit me up. And happy to talk more about that and about the honeymoon forever. But that planning and allowing yourself to do those things is super important. And it is the getting the process or the processes right.
Well, and
what
Matt,
makes that happen.
I saw something that really hit me hard right before the transition of our company. I literally, when I'm telling you transition, we basically cut 75% of our revenue coming in so that we can transition our products and our customers. Part of it was a culmination of a lot of things, but I saw this video about the redwood trees. These are these gigantic trees that are supposed to live for like hundreds and hundreds of years. And they did an experiment where they injected them with the equivalent to them of what would be adrenaline for us so that they wouldn't go into hibernation, this set of trees. And these trees that are supposed to live hundreds of years died within a year because they didn't have hibernation. And so it literally, like, I don't know, something about that video just woke something up inside of me that said, like, that's how I feel. And I know a lot of business owners do. And what can we do? Like, what do these business owners need? They don't need just another agency that's going to handle their social media, right? And tell them to dance on a video. They need strategy, and they need this, what you're talking about, the processes in place to make it happen.
There's a new Clever Cow slogan there. Be the tree. Be the tree.
Hibernate.
Yeah, exactly. Sponsored by bears. If you're looking for a treat for your inbox every Thursday, that includes terrible puns like that one, you could sign up for the Podcasting to the Max newsletter. It is where podcasting meets entrepreneurship and terrible puns. There's a new one every week. I mean, I don't know how people go on about their lives while missing out on it. You can sign up at maxpodcasting.com/newsletter. Now, let's get weirder and weirder and weirder. So let's transition on a completely different note. So would love to dive into something I call the unusual. So this is about, it doesn't have to tie back to business at all, but more you on the personality side. Just love hearing like outside of work, things that are just interesting things about entrepreneurs. So pet peeves, what would you say is your biggest pet peeve?
People who constantly complain but never do anything about it.
Oh, I hate that. I will never do anything about it, but I hate that. I've always thought that the more time you spend complaining about something, like think what you could do with all that time. That could be like a positive force in your life instead of just complaining. Oh, granted, certainly there's always things worth complaining about, and like sometimes it's a good like stress release or vent, things like that. But there's a difference between doing that and complaining all the time about like minuscule things.
Yeah. I'm also the friend who jumps in and like immediately wants to fix it and find a way to fix it.
If it fits your business personality.
Yeah, if I'm doing the work, why are like you need to do the work too. So no, I'm always here to hear people vent, but there's a difference between venting and, you know, being unhappy because of it. So
what about quirks? What's something a little quirky about your personality that family, friends, team, somebody calls you out for, but it's who you are?
I am the worst at dad jokes.
I thought I was the worst. Go on.
I will pull out a dad joke at any moment that is uncomfortable or needs some time, or just because, to the point where like I've literally have books that people have bought me that have more dad jokes in them. Like everyone's always like, "Oh, really?" I'm just weird. Wait, here's a good animal one. Why'd the chicken go to the seance?
Oh, I'm not even gonna try. Go on.
To get to the other side.
Oh.
That is the reaction. Why do I get that reaction?
Well, no, because I didn't get it at first, but now I get it. I'm not well versed enough in seances. Maybe I need to attend more frequently. But that was a good one. I was chuckling. I was cluckling.
There you go.
And then weird talents. In addition to being the dad joke queen, what is something that you are really good at? Beside, I won't let you say stained glass. Something that you just have a knack for.
It's not really weird, but I'm a really good cook, and like I could look at a recipe and then just go completely off script and just kind of know. My boyfriend's very like, he needs to have a timer for everything he cooks, and I'm like just throwing things in there, and it always comes out great.
Is this like, I'm kind of envisioning to an extreme amount, it's like Buddy the Elf when he has like cereal and then he has like syrup in there and then he has all the marshmallows that, that could get crazy pretty quickly. But no, I like remember learning about that in school, is that like a good analogy is like an entrepreneur is like, as opposed to a chef going in and following a strict recipe, is like a chef who kind of improvises a little bit and like sees what ingredients are there and makes something out of it. So on that note, do you have a favorite custom dish?
I just made for the first time chicken pot pie, and I was told it was the best one that they'd ever had. But every year for my mom's birthday, her birthday's in between Thanksgiving and Christmas, and she always hosts both of them and does everything. We do a mom's dinner for her, and I try to cook something really out there because my dad's a meat and potatoes guy, and he won't try it unless it's on mom's dinner. So one year I did beef Wellington. This year I'm going to try coq au vin. We'll see how it comes out. But so far, it's so good.
I think chicken pot pie might be one of the most underrated foods out there, because it's very well liked, but you just don't hear about it as much as some other dishes. And like I don't think I've ever had a bad chicken pot pie, but like when you have a really good one, it's like that feeling you were talking about with love and brand in your business. It's like when you just have that good chicken pot pie, it just hits the spot. Let's wrap up with some rapid fire Q&A. You ready for it?
All right, let's go.
All right, let's get wild. What are your favorite ingredients in chicken pot? No, that would be a whole separate episode. What was the biggest adjustment to moving to Scottsdale?
I was in New York City and everything closing before 9 p.m. and not being able to find a restaurant after 9 p.m.
Wait, that happens in Scottsdale? That's surprising considering it's like a bachelorette party destination now too.
And on the weekends, you have till a little later, but on the weekdays, good restaurants generally, not being able to find a restaurant you want, I think that's it. If you want good Mexican food, if you want good breweries, come to Scottsdale. If you want really good Japanese food, go to New York. Shout out my
mother-in-law and father-in-law, Cheryl and Gary, who always refer to down there in Florida, Boca Midnight. The restaurants clear out in the greater Boca area after, I don't know, basically 6 p.m. No, it's like 9 p.m. Same sort of thing there. What is the best life lesson that you ever learned from your parents?
There's so many good ones. I'm trying to think. I have one that's a little funny that I don't know if I really want to do that one, but
well, you're kind of dangling it out there. I'm very curious now, but
my dad was the king of like the, inspirational, motivational posters type of situation. And so he always said, you can't soar like an eagle when you're hanging with the turkeys. So
it all goes back to animals. We knew it from the very beginning.
There you go. No, I think my family, my parents just were really good at teaching us to be confident in who we are and to really find happiness and to follow whatever opportunity comes our way and to do it 100%. And that was just something that was really in our household from day one. And my parents did it themselves, right? My dad and my mom were able to retire fairly early and live a really great life. And they've always been happy in what they do. And that's just something we've all learned.
That was really beautiful. And I'm sorry. I'm like, there's no good segue from that because I have like really like stupid questions, but no, that's really appreciate you sharing that. And it sounds like awesome people. You mentioned earlier that you love music, but you are not the most skilled at playing an instrument. But what would be your dream instrument to play and play well?
I tried to play the flute when I was in bands. I would love to be able to play guitar and be like I don't know if I could say this, like a badass, rock star.
You can't say bad.
Oh, damn.
No, just kidding.
But,
or explicit.
here's a weird talent. When I was growing up, I actually am a classically trained high soprano Italian singer. Like, I can read sheet music and stuff. So,
wow. Wow. Well, you're welcome to sing if you want, but also, yeah, okay.
It won't happen.
It's so funny. So funny. Some guests, without me even asking, will just sing and rattle off about 30 seconds. But then most are like, no, why did I bring up that I can sing?
It's just not going to happen, yeah. You don't want to hear it.
But on that note, last one, which actually ties to all that. So if you were playing at, like, I don't know, Coachella or something. Actually, no, this is more fitting. If you were playing at Vans Warped Tour.
Oh, I knew you were going to say it.
Or South by. No. And you could cover any song, and you, like, were amazing at music and singing and flute, you know, all that. So you could do it. What would be your one song to cover in front of, like, you know, diehard fans and a mosh pit and everything?
I'll tell you, my karaoke song is Def Leppard, Pour Some Sugar on Me. So there you go.
Awesome.
Most people who are listening to this would not expect it who know me, but yeah.
Amazing. Well, shout out my cousin Elena, whose ringtone was that for a while.
There you go.
Funny. Small world. Well, Nicole, thank you so much. This has been an absolute blast, and we've gone from animals to more animals. So I don't know how far we've got. No. Your story is amazing, and just love what you do and your business and everything you're all about. Where's the best place for people if they want to learn more about you, learn more about Clever Cow Media, anything else you want to shout out?
Yeah. Well, Max, I'm going to leave you with one last dad joke. Why did the Scarecrow get an award?
Oh, I just made a Scarecrow joke in my newsletter. Does it have something about hay or being stuffed? No, probably not. Go ahead.
No, because he was outstanding in his field.
Wow.
Anyway, with that note,
bravo. That's really good.
If you want to connect, like always, we're on social media, Clever Cow. I'm personally on social media, NB Zeno, and Nicole B. Bobby Zeno, Zeno. CleverCowMedia.com. You can join our newsletter. We are launching lots of amazing things in January, including products, free masterclasses, with not just us, but other experts that are part of our community. So come join us. And then also we are launching a YouTube show called What the Frack here, all about fractional executives and how do you think through like a fractional executive. So join us on YouTube, all the places. And if you have any questions, just feel free to reach out to me.
Spectacular. Well, I was going to ask you to wrap up final thoughts with a dad joke, but you've already done you've more than done yourself. I think that's one of the best I've ever heard with Scarecrow. So I'll just ask you to end with this, just like one line, kind of words to live by or words of advice, whatever you want. Send us home here, you old Scarecrow, you.
I'm going to leave you with do hard things. Honestly, when I started doing hard things, like, I run ultra marathons and I travel solo, like that's when those skills started to translate back into, the business and alleviating stress. So the beautiful stuff comes when you do hard things. So always go do that.
Har. Thank you so much, Nicole, for coming on the Wild Business Growth Podcast, sharing your tips, your stories, your music videos, your Warped Tour nostalgia, and, of course, the dad jokes. And thank you, Wild listeners, for tuning in to another episode. If you want to hear more wild stories like this one and animal dad jokes, make sure to follow the Wild Business Growth Podcast on your favorite podcast app and tell a friend about the podcast and maybe, whip out your best dad joke in their direction. I'm sure they will not roll their eyes. You can also find us on Good Pods, where there are good podcasts and good podcast people and recommendations. And for any help with podcast production, you can learn more at maxpodcasting.com and sign up for the Podcasting to the Max newsletter. All you got to do is go to maxpodcasting.com/newsletter and then sign up there. Until next time, moo. That turned into a moo. Let your business run wild.
Bring on the bongos!